Method number 2 is one that I've been developing for a while. So if you look at my older maps, you'll find that I'm using a different method to this, but this is kind of where I'm at now. So similar thing, just sketch in our circle, think about the scale of your tree and how big you want it to be, and sketch that in. Really a circle will do, you don't need to do the leaves just yet. All I'm doing with the pencil is determining the placement and the size of the tree. Just don't worry about shading or even any of the detail work just yet. If you're feeling like planning a lot today, you might sketch in the shadow as well. In fact, I'd recommend you do the shadow on this stage, and then if you decide, hey, I want longer shadows or shorter shadows, you can change it before you put the ink down. So hopefully you can see that. We have just a very faint outline of the tree, and likewise very faint outline of the tree's shadow. Now, for the leaves, I like to think of them in branches, so I kind of bunch them together. Let me just demonstrate. This is going to be a rather messy one because I like to hunch over my drawings when I'm drawing, so this kind of posture I use for recording videos isn't ideal for my personal method. Otherwise you'd be seeing the back of my head the whole time perhaps. But you can see we're kind of drawing these leaves in bunches or branches. Just to give it a more interesting shape. I would recommend looking up trees on the internet and, you know, thinking about how they actually grow. Like I'm trying to draw a pine tree here, so the branches are quite bunchy. That's layer 1. After layer 1, I like to do like a half that again as a layer 2. So that's really enough for layer 2. Sometimes I do just some hatches to suggest the shape. That's the outline thing done. So shading. We know the direction of our shadow is this way, or the direction of the light rather is this way, so the shadow's on this side. That means all this side of the tree is going to be in the shade, and I just do that or communicate that as some more Dyson hatching. The magical Dyson hatch, which makes everything more interesting. Of course, if you really aren't a fan of this method, just use your own method of shading. We're just suggesting the third dimension at this stage. And same idea as over here, when we get to the edges of our shadow, just start fading it away. I do that on the bottom layer and also some, but not as much on the top layer, because we don't want to blend those two layers together too much. Cool. Shadow? I'm just looking over at my reference material. I may as well just leave it here. Got our shadow going this way. So I do a faint pen outline of the shadow. This is just it's not too detailed, but it's also not straight. It's kind of that jittery hand technique I was trying to explain in my elevation video. So I do the outline first, and then I realize my shadow isn't quite right on the tree, so I'm going to patch that up a bit. That looks better. Okay, once we got that, I'm going to do I imagine this like horizontal. I'm I'm going to do horizontal lines. And you see we're just using like a very faint, very chaotic kind of stroke here, which is fine, especially if it's on grass or something. In fact, this is kind of the style that I use, is the haphazard. This is clearly drawn with a biro pen kind of style, which people seem to like, right? I enjoy it myself. Once we have our horizontal lines, I draw back the other way with vertical lines. These are only going to come to about halfway down your shadow. This is when we start, again, suggesting a third dimension. So, horizontal to halfway. We've got that. Now, half again, I'm going to add a diagonal line. And you might even do a third diagonal in the other direction, just very close to the tree and kind of following its contour. But you get that kind of very rough gradient happening, which is much more stark than my example, but you know, that's good for video. Just be light with your pen on the shading. Depending on the pen, you can get a very faded line like this. In fact, you might even just do it in pencil. It depends on if you're going to scan it into a computer or just use it straight on the game table. So that is method number 2.